norms and stereotypes to making sure that the butts are white. Boy, girl, mom and dad want grown-up time, you're going mad. It's a trip, but we'll guide you through with tips and tricks for boys and girls too.
Hi.
Oh, wow. My noise. That was...
My voice broke.
Wow.
I'm still recovering. Hi. My voice is still coming back, but hello.
Hi-lo.
Hi-lo. Hello and welcome. Oh, did it get
It's
in?
okay. You're cute.
Hello and welcome back to Boy Girl Mom and Dad Podcast with
Hello,
Lauren and
welcome back
Nick.
to Boy Girl Mom and Dad Podcast. You're here with Nick and Lauren.
We're going to play some slow jazz.
Sound like we're on Frasier. Shout out Frasier fans.
I've never really watched Frasier and it hurts Nick's
so
heart.
So shout out for everybody else but you, I guess.
Yeah. So today we are going to talk about boy mom culture and girl mom culture.
And we're going to tell you which one is best.
No, absolutely not. But before we get into that, it's our TIFF. It's time for our TIFF.
TIFF's treats?
TIFF's
cookies?
Treats. Cookies. We can talk about cookies another time because I believe that white chocolate macadamia nut is like the most low-level cookie. I would literally never pick that out of a box.
And this is a lesson about how we all have flaws and we're all wrong.
I do like, there's a cookie in Dallas called Dallas Rocks, and I forget.
Cookie filled with rocks?
Where it's from. I'll find the link and I'll put it there. But it's like, it sounds weird, but it's like cranberry and coconut and pecan. And I don't really even like coconut. And I don't really like nuts in my cookies either. But it's delicious. And I will get the link in there. They ship nationwide. But I will link those. My friend Megan turned me on to those. Anyway, the tip today is more of a theory and like it's on personal preferences. So it's a white sauce theory versus red sauce theory. And so I'm going to pick one. I'll prefer a red sauce like on pasta. Nick prefers a white sauce. And I don't dislike white sauce. I feel like it's just always like rich and heavy. And I don't usually want that. Yeah, but I also like prefer like I'd say red sauce condiments like ketchup. Love me some ketchup. Nick prefers mayo. He prefers not ketchup really, or like an aioli, which is often mayo based. And then just a side note is that Nick doesn't really like spaghetti. He prefers like bow tie pasta or penne or anything like that. But I think it's like on how we were raised. Like I had more red sauce growing up and we had spaghetti quite a lot. Like my mom has a quick spaghetti recipe from her mom, and then like my mom would also make spaghetti meatballs, and I'm salivating just thinking about it. And then Nick, I think's mom usually made like like pasta versus spaghetti, or like what I just said, the penne angel.
She did both.
Okay, that's not what you said before. But anyway, that's just my theory, is like kind of what you're raised with like maybe shapes you, but also if you want to defend your stance of white creamy sauces.
I mean, the reasons that you said you don't like the creamy sauce are the reasons that I do like it. Like,
I think I've just been betrayed by white sauces before. Like, my stomach hurt.
Oh, well, that's not the white sauce's fault.
It kind of is. The red sauce doesn't do that to me.
I mean, it sounds like it's you,
Yeah, I will say it was really sad whenever I was pregnant because I didn't want to touch anything with tomato because it was so like acidic and I already had like acid reflux. It just didn't make me feel good.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. This is just I love red sauce. I love white sauce.
I would not say you love red sauce.
Well, allow me to state my opinion.
Okay, I don't believe you. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I do love a good red sauce. I think a mediocre red sauce, I would rather have nothing or butter sauce than a mediocre red sauce. Whereas a mediocre white sauce or Alfredo or something creamier, I'm okay with. A really good white sauce, I would definitely pick over a really good red sauce. Now, meatballs are a different discussion topic here. A great meatball is exceptional. And I think a quality of a great meatball is it has a good sauce to accompany it. I think spaghetti noodles just don't need to exist. That's my opinion. They do taste good. I think that the difficulty of eating them, it's more than the joy you get from the taste of eating the spaghetti.
Well, like a penne pasta or something, or even a bow tie, they're kind of big. You have to shove the whole thing in your mouth and then chew it. I feel like spaghetti's easier to eat.
So I cut raviolis and bow ties and pennes if I need to. It's very difficult to cut spaghetti.
Okay.
So the bite-size problem, I would say, is a bigger problem with spaghetti than it is with your little tiny bow ties you're referring to.
We can agree to disagree.
Yep.
We both like macaroni, but like as a macaroni noodle. I don't really do red sauce, except there's one thing my mom makes called red macaroni, and oftentimes they have Texas shaped, but it's more like a tomato, but has a little bit more of a kick to it. It's more pasty. But let's just talk about something.
It sounds like that's called pasta.
I don't know. We had hamburger steaks and red macaroni. It's delicious.
Don't say hamburger steaks without defining them, because most of the world doesn't know what a hamburger steak is. Please describe
It's literally
it.
just like you cook it like a steak, like shape it like a filet mignon, if you will, but you cook it on like a griddle.
It's a hamburger.
You don't put a bun on it.
It's a that's still a hamburger.
It's called hamburger steaks and red macaroni, and then you have herbed biscuits, and it's delicious. Maybe
Does it ever bother
some
you that
corn on the side.
it should just be burger?
No,
it's not.
it doesn't bother me.
Hamburger is annoying
Oh,
to me.
hamburger, yeah.
It's not ham. Why
Yeah,
are we calling it a hamburger?
Yeah, because it's not even like pig. It's cow.
Yeah.
I'll have to look up the origin.
We've gone off track.
I'll have to look up the origin. It's not because of Germany, is it?
I was wondering if it's because of McDonald's.
I don't know. I'll have to look up the origin of hamburgers and get back to you.
We should email the Hamburglar. He probably knows intimately.
Origin of hamburger.
Email Hamburglar.
Yeah. But let's just talk about something we agree on. And our favorite Italian spot in LA is
1, 2, 3. Olive Garden.
Oh.
I'm kidding.
Hey, I like Olive Garden for what it is.
It's
and
not
it's
your
very
favorite,
predictable.
and it's fine. Felix.
Felix in Venice is our favorite.
It's exceptional.
Spot.
So good.
So good.
Amazing focaccia. Every pasta dish we've had there is wonderful. The cocktails are wonderful. Wine list is great.
Yep.
Get there at 4:30, wait in line, sit at the bar.
You don't have to have a
5.
reservation if you do that. But
it's great.
And then our favorite Italian spot in Dallas, I'd say, would be Sprezza.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Very good as well. Relaxed atmosphere. Great air conditioning. Hello, Dallas friends. Yeah. It's a good spot.
Okay. Let's get into the topic today because let's get into the topic today because we kind of veered off. Boy mom culture, girl mom culture, love it or hate it, it's here. And we're going to talk about it today. I feel like I was talking to our nanny before we recorded this, and she was like, yeah, it's like the heart of your brand. I was like, yeah, boy, girl, mom. It's literally like why I created boy, girl, mom is because there was boy mom and girl mom. And I was just both at the same time, and I just wanted to fit in.
You're both and neither at the same time.
Yeah. And so like, why do these exist? What I say why, because like whenever I was doing some research before this, like there's a lot of like toxicity that's like considered whenever those like groupings to talk about themselves, if you will, if that made sense.
Like they're toxic towards each other?
Toxic towards people who aren't them, maybe.
Yeah.
Is more what I mean?
Yeah.
And
toxic
so like that they're better than
belong.
or they get a bad rap. But ultimately I thought about it and I feel like they exist for one of 4 reasons. Sometimes there's some overlap. So I was just going to kind of go over that and dive into like why they exist. So again, that leads me kind of why I created Boy Girl Mom leads me to the first reason. And I think ultimately moms are simply trying to relate and connect with other people after birth. And it's just a time where you're trying to find yourself. And like for me, because, you know, Boy Girl Mom didn't exist, like I kind of honed in on twin mom. That's what I relate to. Those are people like having twins is just wild. And it's hard to have people to relate to that on that level. And just being able to talk to other twin moms just made me feel seen and, you know, valid and not crazy and crazy at the same time. And so like, I think that's why like the first reason I would think would be why boy mom and girl mom exists is because they're people who can directly relate to your life.
This isn't directly about boy mom versus girl mom, but I told you I was watching these travel videos yesterday about people traveling with kids. It's super hard to find content with twins, people traveling with twins. But there's one line in one of them that made me laugh. She's like, oh, if you're going on a long haul flight, make sure you travel with your spouse so that when you need a break, you can hand your baby to your spouse. And when they need a break, they can hand their baby back to you. And I just laughed because look, great for them. But this is an example of how some things are different as twins. Not trying to suggest it's harder, just challenges are different. And to your point, you connected more with the twin moms so that you could talk about those things a little more where they'll be empathetic as opposed to not understand.
Yeah. And I'm not the twin mom vibe. I think there is a twin mom vibe where they like put off like, woe is me. My life is so much harder than yours. And I'm just going to tell you all about it and rub it in your face. And I'm not like that. But I was talking to my dad the other day and he was like, yeah, you can go ahead and say it. Having twins is harder than just having like one baby or even 2 at a different time, like different ages. And he was like, and I can say that because I have raised 2 girls. And I've said before, but my sister and I are 3 years apart. And he was like, I've raised 2 girls and having twins. And I've, you know, he's been like taking care of them Boris, like since the beginning, like he's been around them. And so he's aware of the differences, you know, one newborn versus two
Yeah.
newborns and like 1 3-year-old and a newborn
Yeah.
type thing. And he's like, it is harder. You can just go ahead and say it, which was validating. Because again, I don't ever like seek that out. And I do like have some of like validations confirmed and stuff by speaking to other twin moms. But again, we just all want to be like seen and heard and understood. I think that's ultimately what people want.
And I think that humans kind of
Yeah.
gravitate towards being in groups that feel similar, and,
Yeah.
and they gravitate towards what
Because you
makes
can
them
relate.
Yeah, and what makes them unique as
Yeah.
well,
Mhm.
you know?
Mhm.
Something I just thought of in the way of like twins being harder than singletons is there are probably things that you and I haven't considered that are harder, or excuse me, that we don't have to deal with, like challenges that we don't have to deal with because we have twins. One example is like if we're both in the playroom with them, I don't ever have to feel jealous that you have all the babies.
Yeah, we
you
each
know?
have
So like,
one.
yeah, so there's always one to play with
Yeah.
for the most part. This is probably a topic for a different podcast.
It is, yeah.
In my head, I'm like, what are the things that are super easy for us or aren't challenges for us because we have 2 babies instead of 1?
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah.
little pin.
Anyway, ultimately, again, point number 1 was we just want to be understood and relate to those people who are like us.
Good use summarizing.
Yeah.
I love it.
And then number 2, I think it's just society norms and what's being pushed on us from society. And so like, you know, it's the same thing like growing up, people would tell my dad, like, you're going to try for the boy having 2 girls, or it's on the same thing of like people telling us, oh, you have the perfect scenario. You have a boy and a girl. We are literally having like society say like it's perfect to have a boy and a girl.
Yeah.
And so that's, I think, another reason why boy mom and girl mom, it came to be, is because society was saying otherwise and they wanted to band together and not feel less than. Like, I
Yeah.
absolutely hate that that's a thing.
Yeah.
So,
And we know those people are not being malicious in any way. And it is
yeah,
meant
when they
as
say
a-
say to
Yeah.
us like you have the perfect scenario, yeah.
Yeah, but to your point, it is interesting that like, oh, having a son, or having a son and a daughter is considered, like, some of those combinations are considered better than others.
Yeah, and like again, it goes back generationally. Having a son was to carry your name, and
Yeah.
often the inheritance. So there were things like in the culture at that time. I mean, carrying the name still, I think, is something you can choose not to change your name,
Yeah,
or even guys change their name sometimes. But that was like the thing. So it was like part of your lineage.
yeah. And there
so
was
that's
also
probably what it stems
value,
from.
monetary value in having daughters as well, because you knew like dowries or offerings were coming your way.
No,
if
no,
your
not
daughter was gonna
having
be-
daughters. You had to pay.
No, it's-
Oh, right. You're
it's-
right. Sorry.
yeah.
I had it backwards.
Yeah.
Yeah, the
You
dowry.
were right in your case. I was switching it
Yes,
to the
you're right.
female as well.
Thank
Yeah.
you for giving that perspective.
So I think what you're trying to say is those things don't exist for the most part anymore.
Mhm.
And but we've still kind of kept them in our
Yeah,
minds.
the construct.
Yeah, of
Mhm.
like, is it better or worse, or are there preferable options with respect to the sex of your kids?
And we kind of talked about this in episode 1 about like what we thought we were going to have. And like, I think I said it
gender
then.
disappointment and stuff.
Yeah, I think I said it then, but I thought I would only have boys for some reason. I don't know, maybe because like someone in high school told me they saw me as like a soccer mom.
Which is interesting because, like, what does that mean?
Yeah, that's a
Yeah.
dissect that another time. But I don't know. I just thought I would only have boys, maybe because I have a sister, but my dad is one of 3 boys. I don't know. So like, I never really thought about girl versus boy. I think I was just happy like to have a baby, and like happy team healthy baby is what I was, which sounds cliche, but like I really do mean it.
I don't think it sounds cliche.
Yeah.
I agree. Team healthy baby. Zzz.
Oh, babies. Yeah. I was like, are you trying to be a bumblebee? I don't know.
I'd be a good bumblebee.
And then number 3, you kind of mentioned it like regarding gender disappointment, but another theory of why boy mom and girl mom exists is to cover up specifically like what you really wanted. So, there's a theory of like, okay, boy mom goes hard on like boy mom because they really wanted a girl and they're trying to like lean into like boy mom and being a boy mom. They say that like girls want girls and boys, like a dad wants a son. And so, yeah, it's like, that's why, girl dad, boy mom. Any comment on that?
I don't know. I mean, I have always wanted both.
Yeah.
So I think I have never really leaned one way or the other. The way that I have leaned, which we've talked about before, is I expected and wanted a son first
Mhm.
because I enjoy being the older brother, and we kind of have that if you ask the birth certificate, but twins is not, we don't really have an older boy by a significant margin.
It's by a minute.
Yeah. It's really, what I tell people is that's what the birth certificate says. It was not a minute. It was like 20 seconds.
Yeah. And we often get people who think like one of our twins is older than the other based on size. And I was reading the other day that a twin mom was like, when people ask me that, they say who's older, and they're like, that one by a minute, just to kind of like not mess with them, but more so like just have fun with the answer, because it's a question.
Oh, we do. I feel like we do that.
I don't know that I've ever said it like that directly
I do that.
as the answer. No, I don't think you have, because it's kind of like pointed. I don't know.
No, I have.
Okay.
That's usually my answer.
Oh, okay.
Is like, yeah, by a minute, but it was really less. That's usually what I say.
Yeah, it's funny. But like I said at the beginning, like gender disappointment is real and valid, and so it's okay to have to like work through those feelings and be like disappointed, especially with something you really wanted.
Also, I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with wanting one or the other. I think it's interesting.
As long as you don't push that on the child that you do have.
Oh, 100%. I'm just saying, like, hoping for, I agree. Having what you have and like loving whatever that is, great. Like, obviously do that, and don't put just disappointment on. I'm just saying, I don't think it's inherently wrong to think like, oh, I'd love to have a boy first, or a girl first, or whatever your preference may be.
Yeah. And so the last and final one, which I think we're going to spend the bulk of our time on, is just like based on gender itself. So it's usually, I don't know if you've ever thought about this, the specificity of it, but it's usually gendered. Like we now see more like girl mom stuff, but it's typically boy mom and girl dad. You don't really see boy dad or girl. I mean, you see girl mom now some, but it's really just the opposites. And so what I've seen is just like, it's just trying to relate to the opposite gender, because you somewhat, when I have like a daughter, I can inherently relate to her better than relating with my son, just because I'm a girl and, I'm having a girl, right? So there are certain things that like they will have go on in their life that I can directly relate to.
Yeah.
And it's harder to do that with someone different.
Yeah.
And so it's like they're trying to, boy mom and girl dad is trying to lean into and embracing the other gender. You could even see it as like a banner of them like waving, like I'm trying to do my best to raise them to be like the best, like promising to raise like respectful men and like strong girls and things like that, as just like trying to lean into that and doing the best that they can possibly do. Obviously, again, we talked a little bit about the toxicity of it. So that does exist, but I don't think it's universal for everybody.
I think something that would help me, because I'm feeling a bit out of context, is like when you say boy mom culture, girl dad culture, whatever, like how do you see that manifest? Like, are you talking about in conversations? Are you talking about in Facebook groups and social media? Like, where do you see it?
Yeah, there's definitely, I think, the hashtag, see it like blatantly outright, like in apparel that they wear or hashtags that they post, but you can also see it
like in an assumed identity or like an accepted, this is who I am.
Right. But you can also see it sometimes like display in mannerism. So it's not like they're blatantly wearing it, but like, so a stereotype is like, I'm a boy mom and it's mess tougher, all the time. And there's dirt everywhere and like it's just chaos and I'm easygoing, that type of thing.
Got you. Okay.
Whereas like girl dads are just like into having, which is all good things. Like it's all good to get play in dirt. It's girl dads are, having tea parties and like fairy dresses and things like that, which is great in and of itself. It's just like a lot of times, specifically boy mom, I'm not really going to talk about girl dad here, but there's a lean in of like just mannerisms and nonchalantness, I think, stereotypically from just boy moms.
Yeah, I get it. Okay.
The stereotype that is like widely known. Again, like I know lots of boy moms and they do not fit that at all.
So I this morning was speaking to a friend about how I'm excited that I am learning the difference between space buns and pigtails.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, there are differences.
Yeah. And dog ears.
See, now there's a whole new subject now I need to dive into. I'm wondering if like, do you feel like you see that more because you're in more conversations with other mothers? Because I don't really feel like that subject is talked about among dads that much.
So let's look at it from, if a man really wanted a son, sometimes they'd
Sure.
ignore the daughter. And I'm gonna use my dad as an example, who like was a great girl dad. I mean, my mom has always said he was a great girl dad, like from a long time before this was even like a hashtag or like people wore it on apparel. Here's how he was a great girl dad. He came to all of our dance stuff, like sat there in the stands, watched us, supported us at like singing, dance. I'm trying to think what else that we did that were typically more girly than boy-y. Whenever like my mom would sometimes go out of town with one of us, he learned how to do our hair. So he like, I still have like a visual of like him like curling my sister's hair, or like using the hot tool on her hair and like leaning to that, not just doing like whatever. Like I said before, he played Barbies with us. So it's like, how are you showing up in how your daughter acts and like things that she likes? And she doesn't have to like girly things, but like, how are you embracing her in who she is and what she likes, even when that's not really manly?
So I understand that from an applied practice
Mhm.
and behavioral perspective, like how you're parenting.
Mhm.
I understand that piece. I think what I'm more specifically asking is like, where do you see the flag being carried, and do you see it being carried more with mothers than with fathers?
What do you
Because
mean,
like,
where do I see the
so
flag being carried?
if you're talking about the culture, right? So
Mhm.
to me, that's like, I am this, like I am a boy mom, I am a girl dad. You know what I'm saying? Like those conversations to me, I don't feel like I'm having those with other fathers.
I think
What I'm asking is, it sounds like you might be having them with other mothers, or at least you hear other mothers talk about it.
I think I'm in like a book club group where like some of us have both, some of us have one. And so let's definitely listen to each other on that front. Again, I think that boy mom is mostly where the flag is being carried, to use our terminology.
Sure.
I think what's hard for guys is if people are making passing comments like they did to my dad about like trying for the boy, like they feel like they have to defend their situation. And so it's more so like waving the flag versus carrying it. If that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. That's a good answer. Yeah.
Um,
The reason I ask is because, again, I didn't feel like I see it. Like I understand what it is.
Yeah.
I've had a lot of questions for you in the past as we've talked about this subject, because I'm like, I'm not on these groups or these like,
Yeah.
to me, it's like parent, and maybe I'm just weird in that I don't think of it that way. But you're right. Like people do have those questions of you, like, oh, I remember before we had the twins, like, oh, what are you hoping for? What do you want? Why? Like, and I remember the comments of like, oh, I think you'll be a good girl dad. I think you'd be a good, boy mom or whatever. Yeah. So I understand that it exists. Just trying to grab more context.
Yeah. And I do think you really wanted a boy, which again, there's nothing wrong with that.
Oh, I said it.
Just
yeah.
like, I have
I
friends who really
wanted
want
a boy
girl.
first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. But like, it's just, there's nothing wrong with it. And there is a gender disappointment, and that's okay. And it's okay to work through it and like have wanted something and like dreamed of something. Like that's okay. We are not saying it's not okay. And
I mean, anytime you have an expectation about anything and that expectation is not met, you're going to feel disappointment, which is, to your point.
And
normal.
This is like a long time thing. I mean, look back, I've mentioned him before, but look back at Henry VIII, who married many women and was upset because he didn't get a son until like the very last one, and had all women. But guess what? It was on him. He thought it was the women, and so he had them killed. Some of them died. It just...
So what we're saying is marry a bunch of women.
No.
Oh, sorry. I didn't listen. No, I understand what you're saying.
Yeah. So I did some research just to see, like, actually when I was going to start Boy Girl Mom, I wanted to see what people were searching in regard to that. And so my findings are interesting, and I think it kind of fits with what I'd said earlier. But when I searched Boy Mom, what came up was there was a lot of stuff compared to Girl Mom. And the main things that were being searched were, what is boy mom culture? What's a boy mom? Why is boy mom culture toxic? And then why being a boy mom is the best. There was
that second to last one is so interesting to me.
Why is boy mom culture toxic?
Go ahead. I cut you off.
So, and then the girl mom searches were like maybe a third of, maybe even a fourth of like how many searches there were for boy mom. Again, that fits what we've already said, that you don't really see girl mom as much. There were 2 questions people asked: how to be a girl mom, and why is being a girl mom the best? And I think that fits to the last questions being like, they want to be the best version best mom that they can. So how can I be the best girl mom? How can I be the best boy mom? That's a great question to me because it shows like growth. Like you're already
Yeah.
being a good mom because you're already trying to figure out what's the best thing you can do for them. But I think there's more questions with the boy mom because again, you're not as inherently connected and like understanding what's going on with the boy because you can't directly relate to everything that he will experience.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense.
And so just kind of going off that of why, again, I think that girl moms are asking less questions is that studies show, and I'll again link all of these types of studies and stuff in the show notes so you can see. Studies show that moms are more critical of their daughters because they often believe that their daughters are a direct reflection of themselves. So if you're seeing yourself in your daughter, you know what your flaws are. So you probably know what their flaws are. So they're just like more apparent. And
The least fun mirror ever.
the least fun mirror. And like women in general are more self-critical than men, just overall. And they often carry this with them into adulthood. Even if your mom wasn't like critical of you, like I think there's a nature of women that like, again, there's a lot of inward looking and it doesn't like stuff doesn't slough off as easily. Like for example, with guys, like when Nick's been in a fight with or been upset with a friend, it's like, hey, I'm mad about this. And you're like, yeah, cool, let's move forward.
Yeah,
Whereas like
we're
girls
pretty direct.
tend to be like more indirect, more I'd say
Passive.
catty, passive, that type of thing. And so I think that feeds to it for sure. I recently saw a TikTok by Amanda Ivanelli or Evanelli, I'm not sure, but I'll link it in the show notes. And she has 4 boys, just had her 5th child, and it was a daughter. And she was saying like, I've been a girl mom for like a week and it just feels different. Like I'm already finding myself like just wanting to be liked by her. And like she was like, I never felt that with my boys. And I just want to like there's a lot of pressure I'm feeling like, to raise a daughter that I didn't feel with raising my boys. And she's like, it might be because I've had a lot of difficult female relationships. And so I'm worried and I don't want like our bond to like be, broken or anything like that. And I think that makes sense. Experiencing both at the same time, I can't like say like the stark difference because I'm still living it every day.
Yeah.
But like, again, she inherently knows about being a girl. And so she's able to relate to her daughter in that and is already like worried and feels pressure like to make sure like, her daughter, they have a good bond and she has a good life and things that she'll go through.
Yeah, that's got me thinking about the other side of it, like ways in which I expect to connect with our son that I don't expect to connect with our daughter, if those exist. Yeah, I don't know. I don't have thoughtful points on this yet. I think like it's interesting seeing them grow up side by side because to your point, you can see the differences pretty quickly. But I feel like I don't know, maybe it's just our kids. Like I feel like the super tough moments I'm not seeing from our son. The super emotional moments I'm not seeing from our daughter. Not that they don't exist. It's just like maybe I'm looking for them more in the other sex. I don't know. But like I don't feel like there's a big template placed on each one of them.
No, I think it's more personalities that we're seeing versus like I liken things to personalities, maybe more so than
Sure.
being a boy and a girl. Now there's definite things like Cypress likes cars, but like all likes cars too. I don't know. I would say Cypress probably likes them more, like garbage trucks and cranes and things like that. Whether you have a son or a daughter, you're going to have to do laundry.
Truth.
And actually, if we're going to like bend stereotypes here, I would say when eating, at least our daughter definitely makes more of a mess, which there's nothing wrong with that.
That's true.
Than our son, which, they say boys are just so messy, but
Cypress did make some yogurt bean chicken soup yesterday.
yeah, he did. But I feel like that was not the norm. Anyway, thank you. Rinse. We have been using Rinse since I think February of this year. So how many months is that, Nick? Do the quick math.
More than one.
More than one. We've been subscribing.
Call it
5 months, and they have been a lifesaver just to get some time back and that time we can spend with our kids. And they are a full laundry service. So their main one is a rinse and fold, which is just everything goes in the dryer. They also have hang dry and also a dry clean option. They're in a lot of different cities, like of course Los Angeles. I know they're in Austin, Texas, Seattle, Washington, all over the map. And we have a link for you. If you use our link, you'll get $30 off. So time back and $30 off. Pretty nice.
It's pretty great. You take your dirty clothes, you put it in a bag whether you want wash and fold or hang dry. You put it in the right bag, you put it outside your door, or meet your person for a pickup. They pick it up, and 24 hours later, or maybe slightly longer for the hang dry stuff, it just comes right back to you, clean, dried, folded, and ready to put
You
away.
just put it away.
Mm.
So if you want to try
What a
out
time
Rinse,
saver.
if you want to try out Rinse, we'll put the link in our show notes and you can get $30 off. Let us know
Even
how
if
you
you
like
don't want to try it out, we'll still put the link there. But
We'll
you
still
should
put the
try
link
it
there
out.
and let us know how you like it. So to kind of talk on boy moms now, to kind of flip it, the stereotype of them is, that they coddle their boys and spoil them. And I'll admit it's like a special kind of bond. I saw somewhere, and I cannot remember, maybe I'll try to Google and see who it was, but this is not my idea. But I saw somewhere that like a son is his mother's like last first love. And I thought that was really sweet. And I wish I had written down the date, but I remember the first time like Cyrus came up to me and like kissed me. Like I didn't ask him for it. I was like, oh, did I just get like butterflies? Not in a weird way, but like, did I just get like butterflies? Like it was like the sweetest thing ever. And like, that's how I describe boys, as like so soft and squishy. And actually it could have been the same day, but I did write down this example. It was in March of this year. And I that might've been the day Cypress kissed me. I just honestly don't remember, but I said, Cypress, can I have a kiss? And he came up and leaned in and kissed me. And I said, Olive, can I have a kiss? She looked at me, leaned in, and then took her hand and then rubbed it across my nose and face like it was a joke. And I feel like that's kind of like their personality. Like I'd say she's more like sassy. She's very sweet, but like, and like shares and things like that. But I'd say she's more like sassy and independent, whereas Cypress is more like love. I mean, don't get me wrong. When he wants something, you know it, but like more like sweet, cuddly, teddy bear. I don't know if you would describe the same way.
I just thought of like, sometimes Olive reminds me of the lion in Wizard of Oz, the original one, where he's like, ruff,
yeah.
Ruff. Like,
is there another Wizard of Oz?
Well, the original one is the one I'm thinking of. Where yes, but the original one is what I'm thinking of with the. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about.
Okay, I just didn't know if there was one I needed to watch or something. I guess they haven't really redone that.
No, I think there's been another. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure there's.
I mean, there's the Wiz, but I feel like it's a little bit different story.
Sure, that's another make of the same story, but it might be done in a different way.
There's different songs and stuff. I don't know.
Okay.
But okay, good to know. We're talking about the Judy Garland version.
Yeah.
That's funny.
The lion is what I was thinking. Yeah. Like their facial expression is similar to Olive. We also, like, something I didn't say before this section was we've talked before about how like there's a difference in how it feels to raise each one. So like you compared it not as better or worse, but you said like it may feel green to love Cypress or yellow to love Olive, and what are those differences?
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of what you're describing.
Yeah, loving them are like apples and oranges. I think that was either in the first or second episode, maybe the first episode, where I said like one is loving them as purple and one it feels different.
Yeah.
So like that's definitely a difference.
You're also making me think of like the ways, if you said Cypress will let you know when he needs something or when he's angry, and he definitely does it loudly.
Yeah.
Cut to this last weekend when we're at Universal Studios.
He wasn't angry though.
And I was gonna say that we're in the mess hall eating lunch, few hundred people around us.
In the Harry Potter world area. Hogsmeade, I think. I don't know, whatever. In Harry Potter.
Big room, and like lots of people talking, and we're fully paying attention to Cypress feeding him, and all of a sudden he wanted something, I don't know, maybe a look, and he just lets out this happy scream,
high-pitched,
the whole room silent,
just long enough to like where everybody noticed it. Yeah. And this is interesting. I said to Nick afterwards, like I was like, whatever, we're here, we're trying to eat, it's a day. The people I saw looked like annoyed. The people Nick saw laugh. And I think that's also kind of like a mom-dad difference thing, cool dad versus strict mom. I don't know.
I don't think you're a strict mom.
No.
I
I'm
wonder
saying like the stereotype
if the people
that we
you're
talked
describing
about
are the first few people you saw, or if they're the ones that stick out in your head because you noticed they were upset.
Maybe. I don't know.
For me, the first 3 people I saw were laughing with us.
Yeah. On the boy mom note, I found this article, but she's also written a book since then. I think the article was first. Kate Stone Lombardi. It's about the myth of Mama's Boy, and she has a book. I'll link it in the show notes. But basically, the Mama's Boy gets like a bad rap of like being all about their mom, and so but they're
too sensitive, and there's a lot of
stigma. But studies have actually shown that moms who keep their son close often have like better attitudes, are better in school, like academics, and have higher emotional intelligence, which, can lead to better relationships and things like that. So there's a lots of good things. I was talking about this with a friend and we both agreed, having not talked about it before together. We're like, what's the line that we can like float, or ride the line rather, of like, how can we make sure, that our sons like want to still be with us like when they've grown up, not in a weird way, but just like, how can we be respectful of their family? Because it's like the girls don't really leave, like the guys like leave and cleave and like they have a new family type situation, so it's not necessarily the same relationship, but ultimately it starts now. Like, I mean, you can always mend things, but like you need to have a good relationship with them now, and like keep nurturing that, then that will continue. Like, obviously I think there's stages where like kids don't call their parents, but if you want to have a relationship, then you need to start it now. And just like how can we've also talked about like how to like make them want to come back and like hang out with us, like make the environment good. So I was actually just reading The Family Game by Kat Stedman. Love it. It's a thriller, and I'm not gonna like spoil it, but there's this thing that they do like every Christmas Eve. They do one gift, and there's a treasure hunt. And so I was like, oh, that'd be awesome. Like, I like the idea of one gift on Christmas Eve and like having to do like a treasure hunt to find it, because it's fun. And like that's something like a tradition we could do that like the kids would want to come back for and like spend holidays with it, because they're not required to spend holidays with you. Like, we've talked about that before in other episodes. Like, your kids don't owe you anything. And it's up to you to have that relationship and like want them to like come around and be around. You can't just expect the relationship to be there as an adult just because you're their parent.
There's a podcast that I've heard in the past where I think it was Shia LaBeouf. He was answering questions about the parent-father relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And, without going into detail, his is difficult. But I really liked something he said. And he mentioned like one of the ways he measures success as a parent, not to say this is inherently right or wrong. One of the ways he measures success is, are you the safe place for your kid to come back to no matter how old they are? So he illustrated parenting as, you're not always pushing and you're not pulling back, but you're always the safe place for them to go. So if you go to a park, they're afraid to go talk to the other kids, you're always there. You're the hand that they can always come back to. They test the water, they go out, they get a little bit scared, they come back. You want to be, no matter how far out they go, you always want to be this safe, comfortable space for them to come back to, so that they A, know that you're there, and B, have a place to come back to. He was like, that's one of the ways that we should measure success. I like that thought, to your point of, it's actually pretty scary looking forward in the future, but like to your point of, you want to have that relationship with them when they're older. I think also to your point, creating the safe space in yourself for them is a way to do that.
Yeah. And I think this is a good time to kind of say like, parenting can be hard, is hard in general, period. It can also be hard if you have a strained relationship with your parents, or you don't have a relationship with them anymore, or like there's something traumatic growing up that like shaped you, but like you are doing a great job and you have learned from that. And I can betcha what you're trying to do is make sure that your kids, don't have to experience that. Like, I think I saw a TikTok recently that was like, I love seeing my daughter playing with her dad and like just knowing that I picked a partner where like she gets to do that, and like also being jealous at the same time. And it's hard, like wrestling with those emotions. And like I can't directly relate. I, have learned a lot from other people, to where like I can sympathize, but I can't empathize. And I just know that that is an added level that like I don't really have to deal with. I just know that that's hard. So I just wanted to kind of like say that, to know that you're seen.
Also, you are not your parent.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of like fear of, I'm not saying this about me, I'm saying in general, there's this like, especially when trauma's involved, there's this like, I just don't want to be my dad.
Yeah.
Or I don't want to be my mom, not to say that they hated those people, but it's like people are afraid of trauma they've had and ways they didn't enjoy being parented. And they're afraid of becoming those types of parents. And it's just impossible for you to be your parents. So yeah, find comfort in that you're doing a good job, and you are not the person you're upset with if you're upset with somebody and how they parented.
Yeah, and something Nick and I did discuss, we've actually discussed it with friends too, but before we had kids, was, like what did we want to do that our like continue that our parents did, and what did we want to do differently from our parents. And like that isn't, mom and dad, when you're listening to this, we're not like, oh, you did this wrong or bad. No, it's just like, okay, they did this. Do I want to do this?
Yeah.
It's more like just like looking and seeing like what we want to do. You know, it's a different time, things have changed. But I know something that Nick and I both said about our families is, and we wanted to be, is like we wanted to be a home where people could come and
Yeah.
be like people,
Which we both had.
yeah, people came to our house, you know, they ate food, they hung out, they did that type of thing. And so
wanted to come and were
Yeah.
comfortable being
Yeah.
there. Yeah. Friends, family. We
Yeah.
want to have open doors.
Yep. Not to get weird at this point, but since we're still technically on like the boy mom section, like obviously you don't want to have an Oedipus complex issue, which if you're probably heard of it, but if you don't know, that's it. He's in Greek mythology and basically kills his dad to marry his mom. The girl version of this is called the Electra complex.
I did not know that.
Yeah. And, you know, this is like when a son for Oedipus, you know, like a son becomes like possessive of their mom and, you know, like don't touch her or like she's mine, that type of thing over everything else. And similar, like when a girl's like, I want to marry my daddy, you know, that type of thing. So obviously when I say like toe the line, like how can I have a great relationship where, with my son and daughter, but how can I have a great relationship, but it not be weird and like have a healthy relationship with other people as well.
Yeah. To your point about like our discussions about, hey, we want to carry this on and these are things we might want to do different. The things, what I'm trying to remind myself is like the things we want to do different are not because we have so much pride that we know we're right or better than our parents. Like we're obviously little baby parents compared to them.
Yeah.
They do know a lot more than we do. And, you know, the pursuit of a different parenting strategy or things that we may want to be different is not, at least with me, is not me saying, I know you're wrong and we're going to be right. It's more like, hey, I'm going to try this a different way and I might fail, you know, like the thing I'm running from might not be smart to run from, you know, my strategy may not be a good strategy. So like, it reminds me of that quote that I heard again from another podcast, and I'm both going to butcher it and I don't remember the reference to give credit, but you are a product of how your parents brought you up, but it is not their fault. So like, I try to remember that as well. Not
was that Jordan Peterson? It sounds like Jordan Peterson.
No, it wasn't. It was somebody else, and it was somebody else in a similar profession. It was actually a therapist.
Oh, okay.
So no, it wasn't him. But yeah, I like that a lot because it's like, if we're all in this pursuit of trying to be great parents, all of us, right, who have kids. And if we're deciding to go a different way than our parents or other influential parents in our lives, let's release the blame part from it, you know, which is hard to do, especially when there's trauma involved. But the way, and feel free to disagree, the way that I like to think about it is like, I'm trying to do something different because I think in this point of time, it may yield different results. Yeah. I could be wrong. And I'm not assigning blame to my parents or to your parents or any other parents who had a similar strategy that I'm going away from. I'm not assigning blame or fault to them as a result of me taking a different path. I'm just trying something else.
Yeah.
You know?
And I think it definitely could feel differently, like depending on how it's delivered. Like if you're rude about it or, you know, the way that you maybe come across to your parent. Obviously I'm
not going to do that.
Yeah.
We're not going to do. Yeah.
Yeah. I can't believe you did that for me.
Which should not happen.
Right. So, I mean, there is a way where I think it could be hurtful.
Of course.
But I think if you try, it could just be growth for you both.
I think that taking a deviated path from your parents is going to hurt them a bit. You know, it will. I think that it is not, while you can control your messaging, to your point, is a different subject than our podcast. While you can control your messaging and you should be very kind in saying like, oh, we're going to actually do it this way. You know, this reminds me of our boundaries that we talked about. Like, it's okay to do that.
We have an episode on boundaries. Yeah. That's what he's referencing.
Thank you you're right. It's okay to do that and be kind in delivering that messaging. But if your parents are going to disagree with you, your in-laws are going to disagree with you, you can't control how they receive that. You can be very kind in communicating it and holding your boundaries, but do not take their disagreement or maybe anger towards you for going a different way as a slight against you. Like, just, you know, it's when people go a different path than you, And you're going to feel the same way when your kids maybe have kids one day. Like, you're going to feel like, why would they do that? That seems ridiculous. Or did they hate what I did so much that they're going a different way? I understand that perspective, but just don't take too much of that on yourself.
You could definitely go down a rabbit hole.
Yeah.
If you're not in a healthy mindset.
Yeah.
One of the things I found when I was researching were studies that asked like if girl moms or boy moms were happier, which I think it needs to be redone. I'll link stuff in the show notes. But what's interesting is within the study, it showed that girl moms were happier, but boy moms had it easier in regard to raising kids. And what they found was it came down just to gender and understanding, kind of what I already said earlier, is like when a woman has a daughter, you know, she can directly relate to them. So there's an understanding on that level. And I think though that it's changing. So like we talked about it before in episode 2, which is please don't say that to my children. There are studies have been done that mothers speak differently to their sons than their daughters, and that they speak more emotionally to their daughters than to their boys. But I think that like in the past, like boys have been left out of like this emotions, and boys have emotions and they're allowed to have emotions and they need to work through those emotions. I've read several boy books that I can link again in the show notes. And the titles are slipping my mind, but it's about, you know, like the emotions of boys. So I think that may be changing in the fact that it says that mothers who have sons have it easier raising them, just because I think that the emotional part is going to come into play if it already has not come into play, because that is the harder spot. If you're not going deeper, if you're not getting on that emotional level, yeah, it's easier because you're staying on the surface, you're gliding.
The reason I'm looking at you weird is I hope that is true. And I agree that there is a greater level of comfortability with men feeling emotions and crying and all this stuff that previously was tamped down and suppressed. I wonder though, if the parents are expecting that from their boys, and maybe the mothers specifically, but are not changing their own behavior towards their sons to enforce, or rather to support that behavior. So to your point, the study said that women tend to speak less emotionally to their sons. I wonder if that's actually changing, or just their expectation that their boys are more emotional is changing.
It's just a
question.
But I think the stuff that I've read lately is specifically about how to talk to your sons and like how to talk to them about their emotions and things like that, because like they've been left out. The book I'm thinking of, I think it's Decoding Boys or something like that. The author of it was the same author for American Girl, like The Care and Keeping of You, which is like a whole book about like girls and like growing up. And yeah, there are some puberty aspects in it, but there are other things too, like emotions and brushing your teeth and hygiene and things like that. And that didn't exist for boys, which is unfair. There is a boy one now, but the whole point is like you need to create a space for that. And like I mentioned the book before, but my sister is a therapist, and like her go-to book for getting boys is The Boy with Big, Big Feelings, because like they're going to have feelings and they need to let them out. Don't need to like stay in. So I think there's a little bit of both to answer your question of like,
I know there's not a good answer.
Parents just acting more emotionally available for their sons. And then also like allowing their kids to feel that emotion.
Well, there's got to be a dad part too. Like I know you brought it up from the perspective of women speaking to their sons, or rather mothers speaking to their sons, but it's like, the father, to your point, needs to be comfortable showing their own emotions as well, to model that behavior for the son who's growing up in their household. So yeah, that's both.
Yeah. So I thought it'd be kind of fun to end with some questions from our listeners. So I have 2.
Q&A.
By the way, I open it up on Instagram, so that's where these have come from. But you're also able just to email me a random question at hello@boygirlmom.com. That you can also submit it directly on our website, boygirlmom.com, or just slip us a DM at boygirlmom.com. So anyway, this
carrier pigeon's good too.
Carrier pigeon, yeah. Do you feel like there's more of a quote boy mom culture end quote than the same for girl moms? I think we kind of answered this already, and that yes, I think that there is more of a boy mom culture again, because like they're trying to lean into raising someone who's different than themselves. I do think there is more of a girl mom culture now that exists, but it's more like innate, whereas like the boy mom you might have to like lean more into. And so I do think that there's more of a boy mom culture, because again, that also not only are they different from us, but the mom could have wanted a girl. And so they're trying to lean into it that way. And so it quote, need for it exists more. But I do think that it is coming up. If it's not the same, but I do think it's coming for girl moms too.
I know this wasn't the question, but I feel like the opposite is probably true as well. Like you don't, while I earlier said that it's not really a topic of conversation between guys, I think like the culture and calling it girl dad or whatever probably doesn't exist, but there are more conversations about like what I had this morning. Well, I'm learning things about how to parent my girl.
Yeah.
Whereas there's not, I don't know, there's not that much, like I think there's a sense of pride in guys where we kind of know how to raise our sons, as if that's true. But
yeah, the same for women raising girls.
Yeah.
We kind of know it innately.
Yeah.
But I think where the girl dad thing shifts is like, not only have they had to defend themselves about like not having a boy, but they are like excited about it. Like you're excited to learn about those things. And in the past, I think that could have been seen as not manly and not like okay, and like why are you doing that? Like be a man, like that whole thing. And so and so the next question,
as if it serves Olive better for me not to know how to do pigtails. I think that's a hilarious thought.
It just would show that you and again, this I think this has shifted how we've kind of talked about like dads being more present and having the more ability to be more present, because in the past, at least in America, like societally, it's like the woman taking care of it and the guy just like doesn't even change the diapers, that type of thing. And so I think that is changing too and helping as well,
because if mom's out,
who's watching the kids? He's referencing another episode we have. Check that one out. And the last question is kind of like twofold, but also I'd say fourfold. What's the hardest part about being a boy mom? What's the hardest part about being a girl mom? And we can ask the same question as in boy dad and girl dad. So I'll answer first and then you can go from there. Is that cool?
Yep. Sorry, caveat. Our answers are from the perspective of 20-month-old parents of twins. We're baby little parents and not experts, reminding us again. Just our answers.
And it was just like what I thought of like right off the bat. So obviously for boys, buying clothes, just kidding. That is an answer. But there's so many more like girl clothes, and especially girl clothes that are cuter.
Sorry, you're saying buying clothes for boys is harder.
Yeah, because they don't exist as much. Like I don't want personal preference here. They're the things that exist I don't necessarily want. And so I had to like search harder.
They're also fairly similar and templatized.
Yeah.
Dinosaurs,
cars, tractors, which are great.
Balls.
Love that.
Sports balls.
But that's hard. But I digress. I would say for me, raising Cypress, the pressure to like have him grow up and be respectful of everybody is pretty hard. Like that was something that was always on my radar, and obviously something that I want and what I would have wanted for him regardless. But I think in the past couple years, I'm like, okay, what are the things that I can do like to make sure he understands and make sure respectful? And I think like I'm slightly worried, just like anxiety over the last like several years.
Would you say that's more of a fear you have looking into the future or something you're observing as being hard?
A fear looking into the future.
Not to say that that's a bad answer. I'm just like, when I hear this question, I think what is hard in the practice of right now being a parent, but your answer, I think, speaks to another part of the same question, which is like, what's kind of scary about the future of parenting that sex?
Right. And you made me think of it. My friend, Sarah, I'll put her Instagram post here, but she posted about future tripping. And that's when you like think into the future and get worried about something and like you're tripping yourself in the future that hasn't even happened yet.
The fear of that.
Yeah. And I think that like it can be looked at as like we talked about before. I forgot which episode it was on, but just like how like we are not responsible for our children's actions. Like we can do and like everything we can or do our best to like teach them. But at the end of the day, like they are making their decisions. And that's whenever people ask us about the twins sleeping like if they're a good baby, I'm like, they sleep through the night. It has nothing to do with me. I'm not taking credit for that, because if I take credit for that, then I have to take credit for whatever mistake that they make.
Also,
and they will make
sleep,
mistakes.
are they a bad baby?
Yes, correct.
Yeah,
exactly. Do you want to answer the boy question?
I think I like your answer, to be clear. I wasn't trying to minimize it. I think I have the same expectation that we raise him with respect for everybody, and the same fear that he may not through any inaction of us. Just I agree with that. Man, this is a hard question. I think so. We're talking about boys, right? Raising boys. I think while I am going to be happy, so I'm thinking future as well. While I'm going to be happy with whatever he chooses to have as hobbies and to invest his time in, I do still have this like unrealistic expectation that he's just going to pick a sport or be good at some sports. And for some reason, that's hard for me because like I am very excited about supporting him in athletic endeavors if he chooses to go that path. And it's not that I'll be disappointed if he won't, but I don't know. That's a weird thing that sticks in my mind. That feels I don't feel like I have that expectation of Olive, even though I would be just as excited if she chooses to be an athlete, you know?
So I think maybe it roots in being able to relate to him, and you want him to probably, you would never push it on him, but you would love it if he liked things that you like, so you could do that together, and you're
Yeah.
worried that he may not. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
Even though I know it wouldn't make him any worse of a person or anything. It's just, it's a weird fear I have, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you want to connect, but I mean, again,
Yeah.
if we're building those relationships earlier, then you'll connect, I think, regardless. And you don't have to like something to the same thing to show up and be there for him.
That's true. And I do have an excitement of like when he latches onto something, doing it with him.
Yeah.
But with Olive as well. But
Yeah.
like,
Yeah. No.
Yeah.
Yeah. So my answer, what's the hardest part about being a girl mom? I think my answer here is future seeking as well. And I'm just thinking about all the hurdles she'll have to get through. I think obviously things have gotten better for women, but I'm just thinking like all the literal hurdles, like food she eats, body image, the society norms. Like I want her to do whatever she wants her to do. Like I picture currently me with a shield, like having her under me and just like bing, bing, bing. But like I need her to pick up her own shield. And I think that she is very like strong-willed and like knows what she wants and independent, so I don't think that she'll have an issue with that. But like I also don't want her to have to use her shield, you know? So I'm more so just worried thinking about it like as a woman and then her being a woman and the things she's gonna have to go through. Yeah.
I have two answers. So my my current answer is I still think that she is more fragile than Cypress. Like physically.
Yeah.
There is no evidence of that.
No, she's resilient.
She's absolutely resilient.
She'll hit her head and pop back up and say, let me get back on that bike.
Yep. And arguably she recovers quicker than Cypress in some cases when she has similar injuries or similar things that happen to her.
Yeah, just talk about like society, yeah.
But in my head,
Norms.
She's this like little, like petite, thin piece of glass.
Yeah.
And Cypress is something stronger. So I think that's something that's hard for me. Like I find it difficult to, even though I do it, it's scarier and harder for me to let her walk up the stairs by herself or do something like that. Whereas with Cypress, in my head, there's an immediate like, oh, he can do it.
Well, I think you're also like protector dad mode, like protective big brother, like why you were big brother.
That's actually
like
my fear answer for the future is maybe not fear, but so your shield example made me think of this. I fully want and expect her to be able to pick up her own shield. Sorry, I don't know how to say it. I don't know where I will let her. Sorry, it's really hard to think about. I think that in my head, there's a component of she has to defend herself in certain scenarios to build up some of that armor. But if I'm next to her and she needs to be defended, will I defend her? Or will I let her defend herself? And there's, I think, virtue in both, but that's just such a scary thought to me. It's like, because in my head, I'm like, I will immediately go do something to protect her. Not that I wouldn't, Cypress, but I don't know. It's making me feel a lot of things. But that's something I think is really hard about being a girl dad is I have a very high expectation of myself that I will be there always when she's in danger. And I know that I won't. So I have to, what did we see the other day where it's like, this was Jordan Peterson, I think, where he's like, you cannot protect your children from danger. You can't.
Yeah. Are they doing something dangerous carefully or something like that?
Right. So there's two sides. There's the extreme of like, you're always there and you're always protecting them. And then you create somebody who has a false sense of security and no ability to defend themselves. Or rather foster the environment where that comes, right? Because we're not creating her behaviors. But if she's always protected, I am always there, theoretically, she's not able to protect herself. If I'm never there and she always has to protect herself, she's never going to feel safe.
Yeah.
And she's always going to be on edge. So I think I have a lot of fear of how do I live in the middle?
How do you skirt the line?
How do I skirt the line of like stepping in and defending when I need to defend, and having her know that I will, but also fostering a spirit of strength in the ability to defend yourself in her without stepping in too soon.
Yeah.
So that's a scary thought for me. I don't know why
Yeah.
that made me. Yeah,
Oh,
there's just a lot more.
well, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. Hi. So yeah, my point is men don't feel emotions. And you know, they never will. Yeah, anyway, that's my future facing answer.
I feel like
I don't really want to think about that again.
Okay.
Thanks. No, we can talk. It's fine.
No, I feel like that sums it up perfectly. And like, if you were expecting us to say like one is better or whatever, like it's not. They're different. And you can actually learn a lot from each other. If you're just a boy mom, you can learn from a girl mom,
Oh,
or girl moms, you can learn from both and see like what works for them. And so there's a
I would
lot.
say pursue those differences.
Correct. I'm saying like it is kind of dividing having those boy mom and girl mom, but if you pursue them, like it can just bring you together because you can still relate to things and
Yeah.
learn. You
Yeah.
can learn, and that's why we're here. We're here to grow.
Pursue those. And like that's also supporting that even though we're talking about how these different cultures can be toxic, there's strength in identifying the points of pride in each one.
Yeah.
And helping each other to learn and
Mhm.
grow. So it's not that like, I mean, if you only have a boy or boys, you are a boy dad or a boy mom. That's okay.
It's great.
Find out like what your strengths are in that and support your brothers and sisters who are also parents and help to give them some of that strength, and then expect that they know something from being a girl dad or girl mom
Mhm.
that you don't know that you can also apply to your
Yeah.
sons or your daughters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you so much for learning and growing with us today. If you like this episode, please give us a thumbs up on if you're listening on or watching on YouTube rather. Give us a thumbs up. Oh my gosh. Give
Some
us
people
some.
listen on YouTube. Do you do that sometimes? That's okay.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Yeah.
If you're not looking at our faces. But if you are listening on Spotify or Apple or wherever, just give us a rating. Let us know what you think. Write us a review. That would be amazing. And if you have a topic request or a question, or we're gonna do, I said it on Instagram, BGMAD, dear BGMAD, dear BGMAD. If you have like we did in the last episode, if you have like a scenario you want us to help you work through, we are here to do that. So you can send us an email at hello@boygirlmom.com. Slip us a DM. We can't wait to hear from you, and we can't wait to grow with you.
Yes. Come back, listen, and grow with us.
See you again next week.
Boy, girl, mom, and dad. Gotta wash those butts together. It's a trip, but we'll guide you through with tips and tricks for boys and girls too.